Hello everyone, this is Kat, and welcome back to War Thunder. And today I'll be doing a review on the Israeli Merkava Mk2 be late, which is in the USA tech tree and is the event reward for Operation Frost. If you want to obtain this at the end of the review, if you decide you want to get this tank, it's only available on the Gaijin market. The Operation Frost is still going on, but you're already too late to start with it and try to get this vehicle. That said, it is very similar to the Merkava Mk2, which I will do a bit of a comparison between the two and show a bit of my experiences with this tank as well as play one or two matches with it. So, as said, these are the Israeli main battle tanks, and these have been known for their crew survivability above everything else. And that is very much true. The armor protection is pretty low, with only really like around 100 millimeters at the best points, and even with the internal armor, there isn't really much more protection. Even the strongest piece being these two cast homogeneous armor 100 millimeter pieces. The rest are just 10, 30, 45 right here. These really don't protect you much. That said, the gunner and loader are staying pretty low in the turret. In regards to that, unless the enemy actually hits pretty much trap shots around the turret ring, they will have a tendency to actually miss these two guys. Furthermore, the gunner breach is in between these two, so it's very unlikely that you will lose both your gunner and loader at once. You will lose your commander pretty often though, and your commander actually is in charge of these three machine guns. So if you lose him, you also lose control of your main way you're defending yourself against any air targets or light armor targets, because of course this is a 12.7 M2 HP heavy machine gun, which can actually penetrate up to around 30 millimeters of armor on the top of my head. But the main survivability here actually is the engine. You're gonna lose this boy a lot, and you're gonna actually get set on fire a lot. But it will eat pretty much any shell that tries to go through here, including the M23, which is one of the stronger APFSDS rounds that you'll see around this BR. The only shell that I've so far found that it doesn't fully protect against is the L44 on the Leopard A1A1 L44 Premium. But that said, there's a big weak spot where the driver's side is at, because this engine pretty much acts like 300 millimeters of armor. And also there's also the transmission here, so you can generally you have to repair both at once. And if your repair skill isn't too high, it's going to take up to 30 plus seconds. So you're going to be immobilized a lot with this thing. That's it. Again, the weak spot here is going to be the driver side, because it will go through the front, through the driver, and it will actually hit the ammo in the back, with a chance, of course, of the ammo exploding. On top of that, being an MBT, you cannot really angle your hull. Maybe if you want to angle, you might want to angle like 5 or 10 degrees to this direction, so the engine is slightly covering the driver. And it's not quite far enough to really expose your side, but if you go around here, some of the bigger cannons already get the chance of penetrating you. So if we're going to bring the Leopard A1A1, you see here the DM13 and DM23 are the two, of course, main APFTS rounds. Well, the first one is APDS, and it will protect you quite well. Engine is quite protected. As that the driver weak spot, sometimes it fragmentizes. That can happen. That's especially on the DM13. On the DM23, you're much less protected. Of course, if you hit here lower, it also is much less protected. So the lower grids is of course a weak spot. But this thing actually protects itself pretty well against DM13. Of course, you can take out the targets if you hit low enough on the turret ring, but that's actually a pretty difficult shot, especially from range. And that said, if you actually hit like any higher, you have quite a lower chance of actually penetrating. Sometimes the trap shot does happen, but as far as I noticed, there isn't really much chance of it going through if a trap shot does happen. So that is nice. But that said, once you hit over to DM23, you're gonna have lots of a good time. So it can definitely penetrate the fronts, and it can definitely take out both the gunner and the commander at the same time. And it will even penetrate up to the higher angles and kill the commander and cannon breach. the DM23 on the Leopard A1A1 with the 105 does get blocked by the engine, and of course to this side, the upper front plate will no longer protect you, so that's where you're really gonna have to watch out. L44, so the 120mm guns, like the Leopard A1A1 is pretty much representative for any 105mm armed main battle tanks. Of course, you do have the K-Panzer 70, but it's not really that common. Then the Leopard A1A1 L44, of course, that one has the big gun, almost 400mm of penetration. And this time actually the engine did block it, but there are chances that where, especially if you hit a bit on the higher angle, it will actually go through. And that's where you're gonna have to watch out. So if it can actually penetrate and overmatch the high parts of your frontal hull, and yeah, you will not like it when that happens. It also just lull pens the entire turret. But all that said, it's a 120, and it's one of the strongest guns at this BR. Heat does do somewhat of a job according to you, but they do bounce quite often, so very often you are just fine. The engine also, it does a pretty decent job at eating it. Of course it's the 120, so you can't really protect yourself against the 120, but the 1.5 is weaker. And the whole armor, and also generally also the turret armor does defeat heat shells pretty well. And of course, this tank does have a lot of angles. So what I can advise is actually putting on a bunch of bushes. Mainly, the one of course the biggest issue is that because of the armor types, it is pretty hard to put it on the turret. But especially on this side, it's really hard to get anything on the turret. But on the right side, right side from this point of view, you can pretty easily put one on. And you can, if you rotate this one around, you can put the other one right here. And if you put it properly, you can actually put it in the front, and that gives you a lot of coverage. And that all actually makes it already like almost impossible to really get a good shot on it. And top of that, you can of course cover up this little area right there. And now you got yourself a bush Merkava. So that's it. Let's go a little bit into the actual like statistic on the gun, and of course compared actually a little bit to the Mark One. In terms of the Mark One, the Mark Two actually has a slightly better engine. Of course, they're both. It is 3 tons heavier actually, so does that kind of negated. So 963 horsepower on the Merkava Mk2 B compared to the 796 on the Mark 1. Does give it a extra top speed of 8 kilometers an hour, and you will notice it. Even though you're still one of the slower tanks, you will definitely get outrun by Leopards, XM1s, since you will actually get matched up with XM1s pretty often. That is a thing. But in terms of protection and firepower, you're actually quite similar. So that's it. Let's go into a bit of the crew. So this thing is actually reloaded by a normal loader, and of course, the weapon reloading is is affected by the loader's weapon reloading skill, and of course the leadership skill from the tank commander. And the difference actually is a 2 full seconds from 8.71 to 6.7 seconds. So you definitely want to have a higher level of crew on this one. I only have a level 47 crew here, so it's not amazing, and I don't quite have the silver lines to spend it on a higher level crew, even if it only being a test drive. So I will actually have quite a few times where I'm not quite finished reloading, and the enemy will reload faster than I will. So that's that. Let's go into a match. And what we'll actually, what do want to point out, we only have one decent ABF SDS. We don't have the DM23 basically. We only have, we have one grade lower than that. So our firepower is not the best either. And overall, you will actually just see this as quite a mediocre tank. So in my opinion, you haven't really missed out on a lot. Of course, it is a rare vehicle and it's quite unique. But the M111 is 337mm of armor penetration, while the DM23, as far as I know, is like 350, around there. I might be mistaken there, so correct me if I am wrong. And yeah, so as that you do of course got the 3 machine guns, which are pretty effective at taking down some planes. Jet fighters might be harder to hit, of course, but um, they're quite fragile, and you can do some damage towards them. And those are shells. I took around 25, and sadly, as you can see, the first stage Amaraks are the ones on the left side and the one in the turret itself. So whatever you do, you cannot really eliminate the weak spot from having ammo straight behind the driver. However, I did want to limit a little bit on how much I got in the back, so I only decided to bring up a couple, and it only loads the lower half of the rear right shell rack. I would actually kind of advise actually taking 2 less shells than I brought, 23, because it should actually not load the ones that are lying on the third layer on the bottom, the rear right. Okay, so they're fighting the Black Panther. Black Panther just died. Should be okay now. Oh, I did get hit there, and as you can see, we got turned on fire. It's really easy for this thing to get turned on fire. Okay, there's an enemy over there, but I don't quite see where else I got shot from. That is our ally. And we're already dead. Let's just see what angle he fired from. Did he fire through the building? No, not quite. A bit of a dead angle for me, I guess, but then I'm already back on the hangar because I only brought this thing. I don't actually quite have backups for this thing. And it does make it harder for me to actually do a review on this thing. So there you go to pretty easily see how the hull armor doesn't protect you from a 120mm gun. But I also had some more decent matches with this thing where I survived for quite a while. I don't think it's going to be worth really showing off another match because there's about a 50-50 chance of this thing getting yeeted by an L44, like last match, and about a 50% chance that you do survive. So, yeah, that said, my opinion on this thing is, again, it is a decent tank. It slightly lacks mobility. Like, it is about as mobile as I would say as like one of the older generation MBTs, but it's not quite as fast as I think like MBT 70 or XM1, etc. It is slower than those. And yeah, that's really all I got for this tank. What I can show actually for camouflage purpose, you do have a sand gray and a winter camouflage on this thing, but they're nothing too special, no tricolor or anything. And you actually have to buy the sand one. This one actually can be earned if you kill 720 players in a Merkava Mk2 B-Late. Because I only got 10 kills with it, and 5 or so of those were in a single match in this thing. Um, so yeah, that's gonna take you quite a while to achieve this camo. And if you want to play on desert maps, the standard camo is really gonna stand out. So if you like grinded your ass off to the point you got this thing, you might want to consider just spending the 200 G on getting the desert camouflage as well to make it look the part. And yeah, that's really all there is to this vehicle. There's nothing too special about it. There are no like fancy little secrets or anything. And yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching as always. And I'll see you guys all next one.